Great. Okay, so hello everyone. I am Aurélie Payon and I am a PhD student with Sandrine Caroli, Yann Loriot and Didier Richard. My thesis is in the field of ergonomics and focuses on the activities performed during an avalanche rescue. So as part of my thesis, we attended an avalanche rescue exercise. This exercise was built by the Isère Prefecture with Bruno Siri and took place on January 2020. So I have a short video to begin. I tested yesterday. I know it's not a real good quality, but I hope you see something. So here, what you are seeing is a snow avalanche, artificially triggered by the ski patrollers in La Plagne ski resort. And this is usually performed early in the morning in order to secure the ski slopes for the customers. So this is a big one. Okay, so here we consider the avalanche as a natural risk, which could be a danger for mountain practitioners. In France, for example, we have about 30 people dying every year because of avalanches. So the rescue must be quick and the rescuer must have a regular practice to perform during avalanche rescue. And in my PhD thesis, we focus on collective crisis management in this situation. So thank you again, Bruno Siri, to give us the opportunity to work together on this exercise. And this exercise took place in l'Alpe d'Huez ski area. The scenario was a very large avalanche with several victims. And for this exercise, the CRS Alps rescuers and the firefighters in Isère carried out the exercise, but each was on different parts of the avalanche and they had very little interactions. So here, for this presentation, we are only interested in the actions carried out by the CRS Alps rescuers. Okay, so concerning the method we developed for this exercise, first we filmed the whole situation, so during 2 hours. Then we carried out 2 individual self-confrontations interviews with the 2 chiefs of the rescue operations, which we mainly filmed. And we also conducted a collective self-confrontation interviews with all the members of the CRS Alps. There are about 40 people. For this study, the self-confrontation interviews consisting of showing video sequences of the work carried out during the exercise. And then we asked for people anything that was not visible on the videos. For example, what are they thinking about? What information is important to them? How do they anticipate what will happen next? Something like that. So this avalanche rescue exercise and the self-confrontation interviews allow us to work on our research objectives, which is to understand the collective work in this situation. And in order to study this collective work, we focus on 4 points in particular. So the first one is the collective work and especially the coordination between rescuers. The second one is the use of tools to better understanding the situation and handling the collective work. then the application of prescribed procedure, predefined rules, and finally what we called regulations, which are the real-time adaptations to the current situations. So these 4 research objectives are anchored in a model of the thesis, which is presented as this. So in order to manage an avalanche, we first need to diagnose the situation and carry out actions, appropriate actions, which in turn modify the situations. And there's 2 actions of diagnosis and actions. They are supported by the collective work, the application of prescribed procedures, the use of tools, the regulations. And this exercise, with the exercise, we start from the observation of collective works, and we can ask the use of tools, the regulations, and the prescribed procedures. So concerning the results, first, concerning the collective work, so I told you we mainly observed the pair of rescue operation chiefs. We observed consultation, collective decision between the 2. We also observe a division of tasks, in particular, for example, the task of the rescuers in the field were always allocated by the same person, and the other person was mainly in charge of transmitting messages to the operations commander in the crisis unit, which were not in the field. So, for example, he requested for resources, he transmitted the victim reports, etc. The multi-victim situation meant that most of the time we observed a co-action type of organization, where each of rescuers carried out action on their own. However, depending to the event, the work organization can change to cooperation organization. So to illustrate, when a new conscious victim was found, when this news was announced, the chief of rescue operation asked the rescuers we were doing a search to stop and help their colleague who had discovered the victim to get him out of the snow. And the last point, another interactions factor between the different rescuers was the presence of the snow groomer. You have a picture of what is a snow groomer. It was a means of evacuating victims, because on this day, the snow groomer was playing the role of an helicopter. And we observed that the work rhythm was strongly influenced by the arrival of the snow groomer on the avalanche, because in a real situation, the helicopter cannot wait too long on the avalanche in order to save time, to save fuel, etc. So this introduced the use of tools. And the first point is the main communication tool was the radio, with 2 different frequencies. One frequency is to communicate with the rescuers in the field, and one to communicate with the crisis unit, which was not in the field. So during the self-confrontation, the 2 chiefs of rescue operation said to us that they had 1 radio each, with a responsibility for 1 frequency each. And the two radios facilitates the distributions of the roles of the tasks between the two rescue shifts. Another tool is one of the rescue shifts use a follow-up sheet. I will show you a picture after, where he noted all of the victims found, all the information he received at the time of the alert, and the rescuers present on the spot. During the self-confrontation interviews, the rescue chiefs explains that this sheet allows them to better reflect on the whole situation because there is a lot of information. And he also allows the two chiefs to have the same information at the same time and without having to talk to each other, just reading. So this sheet serves as a support for the common representation of the situation, the common diagnosis of the situation. For example, during the exercise, the rescue operation chiefs were unsure of the exact number of victims, so they referred a lot to the follow-up sheet to validate the information of the number of victims. And we didn't observe the use of a dedicated software to follow the rescue activities. It was only paper and pencil. So here here are examples of different forms of coordination. It was my first point. Between the two chiefs of rescue operations. So on the left, we can see different moments of the rescue management where each one managed his task independently. So in the first picture on the top left, we can see one of the two filling in the rescue operation follow-up sheet, and the other one gives instruction to the rescuers in the field. And at the bottom left, we can see again the two rescue operation chiefs on the two radios and the two frequencies independently. And on the right is an example of coordination and discussion between the two rescue chiefs. In particular, we see that the follow-up sheet is it really supported the exchange, and we can see one of the two pointing directly to the sheet for written information. And at the bottom right, we see the follow-up sheet completely filled in. So it was at the end of the exercise. And we can see the different category of the victims, the green, yellow, red, or black one. There is also the name of the rescuers present in the scene and a diagram of the avalanche with the location where the victims were found. So this is for the tools. As far as procedures are concerned, the rescue chiefs mentioned the lack of formalized procedures, formalized rules. The formal organization of the work is based above all on main principles, which make it possible to adapt to the great variability of avalanches. Also, this principle, this procedure are largely based on the feedback from experience. In particular, having two people to manage the two radio frequencies. During the interviews, the chief of operations said that this practice of working in pairs was quite new, quite recent, and had been tried out during exercises in order to overcome the difficulties of having only one head one chief of a rescue operation. The second point is the obedience to hierarchical orders is a fundamental rule of the work of rescuers. I have a video for this. I hope the sound will be okay.
À tous, des pelleteurs en rive gauche partie haute. Il y a une victime qui a été tuée visiblement par le chien.
Alors lui, il y en a un qui reste au DVA et les autres, vous allez...
ouais, pelleteur, on t'envoie.
Et les autres, vous allez pelleter sur le maître chien, rive gauche.
Donc ça sera la 3, Damien.
Ok, ça sera la 3.
Dès que je peux avoir un bilan, il me faudra.
Ok.
L'idée de Jean-Noël, on attaque la recherche Narva à 3 personnes.
Ouais, négatif, il faut qu'il y en ait 2 qui aillent pelleter avec le maître chien. Donc il n'y en a qu'un seul qui reste au DVA, les 2 autres, vous allez pelleter.
Ok, c'est reçu.
On donne priorité au pelletage, il n'y en a qu'un qui reste bien haut et qui fait son DVA.
So from this video, during the collective self-confrontation interview, all rescuers agreed on the need for authoritarian leadership to be effective on a rescue. And regarding victims, rescuers said that they use the war medicine techniques to classify and rescue victims. One chief of rescue operations said about that, on sauve les vivants, so which means we save people in life. This explains why they has to stop the search and go help taking care about the new victims found. And the classification of victims is done by assigning color codes according to their severity, so green to black. Yeah. And it is these color codes which define the order of priority of the evacuations. And during the exercise, one of the victims degraded, and this is why it's important to keeping written records of the victims, because his priority of evacuation was much important because his state degraded. And finally, we looked at the regulations of the rescuers. For this, we defined tipping points as events or elements that make the situation more complex, more difficult to manage. And gradually, the accumulation of this tipping point can turn the situation into a real crisis to be managed. So there is 2 examples. At the very, very beginning of the intervention, the rescuers are understaffed in relation to the numbers of victims. So the solution is that one of the chief of rescue operation searching on the ground for avalanche victims rather than taking his role of chief of coordination. Another one is some of the resources of equipment and rescuers requested by the rescue chief are not brought to him because they are not available at this time. So the rescue commander says that he then has to make do and continue to manage the situation. There were not a real solution for this, just continue. And in conclusion, there were few limitations of the exercise, which were reported to us by the CRS Alps rescuers. So the first one is that the scenario of a very large avalanche with multiple victims was quite unlikely. Also, there were some errors in the setting up of the scenario. For example, one skiers didn't have ski shoes, so this brought some difficulties for the chief of the rescue operation in the for knowing the exact number of victims. Then the absence of the helicopter greatly facilitated the operations, because the helicopter's breath normally makes the leaves fly and prevents radio communication in its presence because of the noise. But yesterday we talked about the cost of the exercise, and for this one, having an helicopter was not possible. And finally, in terms of stress, the time pressure is much less important during the exercise than in a real situation. But in spite of the artificial aspect of the situation, this avalanche rescue exercise allows the different procedures, the use of tools, the collective work, the regulation to be tested in a large scale, quite a real life. And to finish, there is some inputs in this exercise concerning the operational inputs. During the self-confrontation, this filmed exercise enabled the different members of the CRS-HALP to discuss together. The exchange focused on their professional rules and their intervention practices, which are not necessarily shared by all of the members of the group. And for concerning my thesis, this exercise enabled to gain new knowledge in the study of crisis management. We also observed during the simulation the different tipping points previously identified in our exploratory study. And finally, this improved our methodological approach to represent the rescue team's collective work. And I finish. Thank you for your attention.